out to Socrates. Socrates still trying to get the opening. Oh, Socrates! Whoa!
And there it is. The crazy gang have beaten the Culture Club.
Maggie Thatcher, can you hear me? Maggie Thatcher, your boys took the hell of a beating. Your boys took the hell of a beating.
(1979-80) revisited, subsection module 1.09, paragraph 2. Having spent paragraph 1, Dave, on the magnificent Brian Moore meets Kevin Keelan, it's now back to action on the pitch rather than the wonder of Kevin Keegan's life in Hamburg.
How can we follow Kevin Keelan?
How can we follow Kevin Keelan? But we'll try. A Hugh Johns centric Aston Villa versus Stoke City from the First Division, Dave. We've got 4 games here, none of which are in like huge amounts of highlights. And this is the longest set of highlights we've got, about 10 minutes or so. ATV and the missing Star Soccer reels that have been thrown into the skip, Dave. So we're at the mercy of ATV's coverage. Tends to come from broken down highlights from the big match or the kickoff match and all that type of stuff. But here we are, Villa Park, Dave. Stoke City. There's a lot, even though the footage is minimal, it's shorter than what we've been getting used to. There's still a lot to unwrap, Dave.
There's a remarkable amount of things going on in this game, and most pleasing right from the outset is the return of the mud. You've got a nicely mud-caked pitch. Here we are in November, and the pitches are now starting to be worse for wear. So that's always proper English football from the winter in the 70s and 80s. That's what you want.
Absolutely. There's very little in the way of undersoil heating at this point in time. We're not far away from it, but there's not many grounds that have it installed at this point. So yeah, it's very much at the mercy of the frost as we're going to move forward through the winter. The rain, which will make these quagmires. We're looking forward to some white pitches and some orange balls and all sorts in the subsection modules and paragraphs to come. Hugh Johns on the microphone for this one, Dave. He puts in a wonderful shift.
They're great, man. From my area, he was the voice of Star Soccer all the way through my growing up. So he was, our version of Brian Moore or Gerald Sinstadt or whoever it was around the country. So the man, of course, who famously voiced the 1966 World Cup final on the channel that nobody was watching. So in a parallel universe, he's Kenneth Worcester now, but just sadly not this one. But he was eccentric, I suppose, to a degree, colourful. He had a great voice for commentary. He was clearly somebody who'd grown up in the 30s, 40s, 50s, in a sort of either side of the war, reading Boy's Own comics and Biggles, and there's plenty of that kind of stuff makes its way into his commentary.
It absolutely does. I mean, he's an interesting character. He's never what you can actually call ITV's number one commentator, is he? Well, for a short period before Brian Moore is hired in 1968, but it's an oddity in that even going into that 1966 World Cup, Jerry Loftus is the man that's commentating on FA Cup finals for ITV at that point in time. So he's still, he commentates on 4 World Cup finals, 1966 through 1978. Because Brian Moore does a lot of studio work at that point in time as well as behind the microphone. So for World Cups, he's tends to be in a studio in London, while it's all the other regional commentators that head off to the various outposts of the world to cover World Cups over that period of time. But yeah, he's so synonymous even for those outside the Midlands. We all grew up with our own regionalised ITV coverage. And it would be a case of, if it's ATV, you knew it was, if it was Midlands game, you knew it was going to be Hugh Johns. If it was a London game, you knew it was going to be Brian Moore as that secondary coverage for whatever you were getting from your own region. But Jerry Harrison, if it's a Norwich or an Ipswich game, it's, you knew exactly who you were getting. We knew where our football was. We knew he was going to tell us about it. We knew he was going to score the goals, save the shots. Everything was in place before it just scattered everywhere. With multitudes of commentators who all sound the same, squad rotation, and all of that, which means that it's so much more difficult to keep an eye on. Early rendition of "You'll Never Walk Alone," Dave. I'm pinning this on Stoke City fans. I've listened to it back a couple of times. I'm not detecting the second City twang behind this one. More, I think it's more the dulcet tones of the Potteries for this one, Dave.
I think it probably is, particularly as they have the better of the early exchanges in the game. I think that's forced them to get the scarves aloft and get the tonsils moving. It's a remarkable game. I mean, Stoke do take the most jarring thing right at the start is you see Mick Petchik playing, and he's playing for the Villa instead of Stoke, which I've completely forgotten that he was at the Villa. I mean, he obviously wasn't there very long, but he's definitely Stoke, a bit Everton, but Stoke, and to see him playing against Stoke and for the Villa, it's a jarring concept.
It's an odd one, isn't it? Opening goal's a bit of a regrettable one, shall we say, for the home team. It's not even on target, Dave, and it ends up in the back of the net, bouncing off Jimmy Rimmer.
Magnificent piece of goalkeeping from Jimmy Rimmer. Probably up there with as embarrassing a start as it was in the European Cup final for poor old Jimmy. It's an overhead kick at the near post that's going nowhere. And somehow, I don't know, I mean, I've watched it half a dozen times. I still can't quite work out what it is that he's doing. But he somehow manages to scoop the ball off the turf and into the back of his own net, which,
it takes some doing. It does take some doing.
Massive piece of goalkeeping.
It is amazing. Back to Hugh Johns' chat. Before another goal was scored, there's a dog on the pitch, Dave. Just run us through Hugh Johns' take on the dog and his reminiscences of ages gone by when it comes to dogs and football pitches.
He's absolutely delighted to see this dog on racing across the Villa Park turf, running after the ball, doing all sorts. And from some you don't see this sort of thing very often these days, but years ago, every game had a dog on the pitch. I find this hard to believe somehow, unless he was, commentating on Hackney Marshes or something on a Sunday morning. But I find it hard to believe there was a dog on the pitch in every game. But it is entertaining. You've got to give him that. It's entertaining. The only way it would be better is if it had a string of sausages in his mouth and there was a butcher pursuing him, shaking his fist in there.
I was trying to identify the dog at one point. I'm not Staffordshire Bull Terrier. Has it come with the away fans?
Could be, yes. Yeah. Denis Smith probably brought it with him, left it in the dressing room. Somehow it's got free.
It's been let out onto the pitch while Stoke are 1-0 up to disrupt the play. I quite like this approach from Stoke City. Before the interval, however, Villa do get their equaliser. The dog seems to upset the apple cart for the away team more than the home team, Dave.
And fair play to the Villa fans, actually. While the dog's running around, there is a chorus of Andy is back, referring to Andy Gray, who has recently gone to the Wolves. That is some comedy time in there. That is great work as well from the Villa fans. But Villa's equaliser, it's a good equaliser, Dave. It's a well-worked equaliser, hit from distance from Dennis Mortimer. Again, not the greatest of goalkeeping, shall we say. Maybe caught out, not quite as bad as the one that Jimmy Rimmer ships, but Is it Roger Jones, this one? I sat through the coverage thinking this is definitely Peter Fox. When I come to look up, and it was kind of like, no, it's not. So that was shocking enough as it was. It's a nice goal, though, isn't it? I mean, nice run from Keelan starting, then a lovely pass from Brian Little, and it kind of reminds you what a great player Brian Little was. What a shame it was he had so many injuries that kind of curtail things for him. But he was a really, really good player, exciting to watch. It's a great ball into the path of Dennis Mortimer, 30 yards out pretty much. He whacks it a goal, and it kind of skids in, doesn't it, past Roger Jones. And my notes here are goalkeeper's not doing a lot, which I think sums it up, really. He kind of waves it past him.
He doesn't
going wide or something, I don't know.
His positioning isn't great, and from his positioning, he's caught out. He can't get across goal. There's no way even if he puts in a dive for the cameras, he's not going to get to that because of his starting point. There's no doubt about that. But it's
Hugh Johns there. It's that will do, which was Hugh Johns' catchphrase for goals going in over the years. Oh, that will do.
Excellent stuff. Yeah, Dennis Mortimer. He's in one of his bearded modes as well. It's the right way for Dennis Mortimer, isn't it? There's something, again, bohemian. There's something, Dennis Mortimer, you don't mess with him. You give him all the respect in the world, but that is multiplied by 10 when he's in a bearded mode.
Absolutely. He's sort of the rampaging Viking through the middle of the pitch kind of thing in this, and he's all over the place. He has a terrific game.
He's everywhere.
He nearly scores another one, another 25-yarder actually. And more good play from Brian Little again, and it's only just over the bar. And he's kind of, after Villa have gone behind, he's the one, from what we see on the highlights, he's the one that's grabbed hold of the game and turned it round into in Villa's favour. Puts in a really, really strong performance. He's the dominant figure there. And Dennis Mortimer at his best, I mean, he was doing all kinds of things. He was box to box. He was a ball winner. He could play a bit. He could score goals. And he was the one that, I think, particularly in this team we're looking at on this day, I mean, Cowans and Little, they had the licence to go and play because of having Denis Mortimer and Des Bremner as well in the side. With them two in, that was the insurance. And the other two could go and play.
Ludicrous he never won an England cap.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, I suppose you could say that a lot of players of that era, fewer England games, certainly fewer substitutes.
A lot of talent as well at this point in time for England. A big pool to pick from.
Absolutely, there were loads of players in and around at that time. This, of course, was the time before we started bringing in foreign footballers, and that meant that most of the players were homegrown. I mean, I know they used to complain, there's too many Scots in the game or too many Irishmen in the game at that point. But I mean, it was the preponderance of Englishmen in the first division at that stage. So I mean, there was a hell of a lot of people to choose from, and by and large, Alf Ramsey, perhaps less so Don Revie, and then Ron Greenwood were very loyal to the players that they picked. I mean, they didn't really change the teams a hell of a lot, certainly not in qualifiers. They might do in the occasional, friendly. But there weren't very many of them at that point. How many games did England play in a year? If it wasn't a tournament year, they'd play the 3 home internationals and probably another 4 or 5. So you'd be playing 8, 9 internationals a season. And you kept broadly the same team, didn't you? So lots of players like Mortimer didn't get the opportunity.
Absolutely. Des Bremner mentioned earlier, Stoke do come back into it. Equally as well off the line from Sammy Irvine. Stoke are a little unlucky to go in at the break 1-1. Although Gary Shaw's impressing again, Dave. He seems to be in the mix of things as well as Dennis Mortimer is. There's one fine block by Ray Evans that looks a bit goal bound. They're not firing on all cylinders, but they're coping without Andy Gray.
I suppose it's a transitional period because Andy Gray was so much the spearhead for, probably 3 years he had at the Villa. Everything kind of in an attacking centre revolved around getting the ball to Andy Gray. That was the way Villa played, and whether he was heading goals in or whether he was creating opportunities for the likes of Brian Little, he was the absolute focal point for Villa. They haven't got that kind of player now at this point. Gary Shaw's a different kind of figure. They are sort of coming to terms with a different kind of thing, which ultimately will go and serve them particularly well in due course. But at the minute, they're still kind of finding the next stage of Aston Villa, I suppose.
Yeah, the piece in the jigsaw puzzle together. Second half, as mentioned, Mortimer comes close again from distance, just wide, top corner. Then comes the controversy starts to kick in, Dave, from here, shall we say. Denis Smith, maybe a comeuppance for bringing that dog along with him for the first half. He picks up a yellow card for a perfectly timed tackle on Gary Shaw. And there's a great moment, I can't remember who it was now, but the Stoke number 5 drops to his knees in the most dramatic fashion, look into the heavens, because he is so aghast at this yellow card that has been flashed at Denis Smith Day.
It's a masterclass in acting, but fortunately it doesn't make any difference because Denis is good. And I think it's one of those, we always used to talk in those days about his reputation has gone before him. And in the case of Denis Smith, that was probably very much the case because Denis Smith would kick anything that moved. Or that was his career. And to be fair, you can't think of any braver footballers than Denis Smith. We used to see Stoke all the time on Stoke. And Denis Smith would always be walking off with some part of his body hanging off to strong I remember vividly him breaking his nose at one point, and that was not the because Star Soccer was 2:00 on a Sunday, wasn't it? That wasn't the kind of thing you wanted to be watching while you're having your Sunday dinner. There's Denis Smith with his nose at a peculiar angle, sort of striding off the pitch. But he was never afraid of a tackle, so he must have been aggrieved to have actually timed one right and still got a booking for it.
There's an interesting way that the footballing universe is goading Denis Smith on this occasion. Got away with many a robust challenge, shall we say. Picks up a yellow for an excellently timed tackle. There's chances at both ends. From here, Jimmy Rimmer saves from Randall. Garth Crooks, who's quite busy for Stoke in this game as well. Again, I think we've seen him earlier in the season, and again he's looking. We understand the Tottenham interest that's rising. Jones saves from Mortimer, so Mortimer's there again, making a nuisance of himself. Crooks hits one just wide, cutting him from the right, and then comes the true conjecture. A fine move from Aston Villa results in Kenny Swain putting the ball in the net. A rare occurrence for Kenny Swain. I'd imagine I'd have to look up his. We might be doing him a disservice. But on this occasion, he rolls the ball in the back of the net. Our referee has instead blown to give a penalty for a mystery infringement, I think we could call it, Dave. I mean, everyone seems quite bewildered by what's going on for this one.
It's a very bizarre passage of play. I mean, it's a good goal. He sort of picks the ball up on the right-hand side. Obviously, there's a right-back, Kenny Swain, and then he comes marauding across the face of goal, drifts into the box, and pokes the ball into the net, and falls over, falls to the ground as he's scoring. Basically, God only knows where the foul is. I mean, there doesn't seem to be. There's maybe a slight nudge on him but he scored. The foul must happen at exactly the moment that he's scoring. So how the referee hasn't sort of hung on for half a second to see the ball hit the back of the net, he's beyond me. But no, he's blown up for a penalty instead, which on that pitch. It would not be the easiest thing to take, and it was always interesting. Alan Evans was the penalty taker for the Villa, the centre half, which again is a fairly unusual kind of thing, but never in question. He sort of he rolls it in. Alan Evans has never any doubt. He's completely confident, and justice is done, as Hugh will point out at the end of it.
He absolutely will. I mean, what's great about picking up these footages of these games is that sometimes the synopsis gives the game away over what the result's going to be. On other occasions, it doesn't. And for this one, there was no pre-warning of what the result was going to be. So even at the very end of that and that whole situation, that sense of jeopardy is great because I'm sat there not knowing the outcome of this and whether this is going to be converted or not, and fully expecting the punchline to be that he balloons it over the crossbar and it's a point for Stoke. To the point that when Evans just kind of like nonchalantly rolls it in, I'm a little bit disappointed in a way, Dave.
I take your point. It's a nicely taken penalty though from Alan Evans as well. It's again, go and have a look at the YouTube footage because on that surface, it's not a given that he's going to just stick the ball in the back of the net from 12 yards. I mean, it is a pudding of a goal mouth. It's you got to keep your nerve to score there, but no, does the job. And Kenny Swain, the first one to congratulate him, which is lovely to see.
Yeah, absolutely is. It's not over for Denis Smith either, Dave. Disgruntled clearly about how matters have played themselves out. He soon flashed a second yellow. Well, just showed red in the days that you didn't actually show a second yellow. You had to kind of like have that corroborated later on from the referee. The red was flashed to Smith for bad mouthing as he jogs by the man in black, Dave.
Yes, I mean we're not entirely clear at the time what's gone on because surprisingly Denis hasn't been involved in a foul or anything at that point. He just seems to be walking past. But after the game's over, back to the studio, and there's Brian Moore employing his lip reading skills to show that the referee has given him the card for something that he said, which that settles all the arguments in the pub later on. We now know. Thanks, Brian.
Absolutely, that is one of the highlights of this. You see him, look, you can see him doing it, you can see what he's saying, and there's the chimes again now for Denis Smith on this occasion. The Romark chimes have kicked in. I've forgotten to remove the clock from my vicinity once again. We'll let Romark have his say, and then move ourselves across to the Anglia region for our next game. But yeah, two well-earned points for Aston Villa, Dave, before we move over.
Good performance in the finish on the Villa, coming back from being behind. And just one last moment to mention, there is a point at which Villa get a corner, and there's Adrian Heath at the far post getting ready to defend it. I mean, it was probably. He looks like a 9-year-old. He's looked like he's come back on the pitch to collect his dog, or something. But he looks absolutely knackered. And we're only sort of 20 minutes into the second half at that point. He looks dead on his feet, which are really low down. Adrian, but yes, there are, as you said at the start, there are 12 minutes of it, but it's an action-packed 12 minutes.
It is an action-packed 12 minutes. There's a lot to see and embrace within those 12 minutes. The next game that I think this one gives us about 6 minutes or so of footage. Again, it's an action-packed game at Carrow Road, given within the 5 or 6 minutes we're allotted. Jerry Harrison behind the microphone for this. Again, this is a. There's no shortage of action, and here's another game where Southampton, similar when they lose out to Leeds at the Dell a few weeks back. There's a bit of sympathy behind them not getting anything from this game, Dave.
Absolutely. I mean, they're the one that are creating the opportunities early on. They're the more progressive looking side, and they seem to be in jobs. They don't really create a great chance until. McShannon forces Kevin Keelan to make a good save at the foot of the post. Kevin Keelan, I mean, he was always great entertainment. So suave. You could see he'd spent about 3 hours in the dressing room with the hairspray on making himself look. I always remember the 1975 League Cup final, which I've watched recently for something else, and Norwich conceded a penalty about 10 minutes to go. Ray Graydon steps up for the Villa to take it, and just before Ray Graydon's just starting to go towards the ball, and Keelan still stops to smooth his hair down on either side. And then, to be fair, saves the penalty, although the Villa knocking the rebound. But that's Kevin Keelan. That was Kevin Keelan. He should have been coming on the pitch in white tie and tails, really. Although in this modern, that probably wouldn't have been a wise sartorial choice. But he should have been. Peter Shilton was all in white at some stages in the 70s. Kevin Keelan should have been all in white. That would have suited him.
Yeah, there's a little bit of Lionel Blair at play, a little bit of Milk Tray Man, and all wrapped up within a fine Norwich City #1 shirt there. Though Southampton do have the chances here. Bowyer again. He's having an absolutely outstanding season here, Dave. He's forces Keelan into a save. There's some great one-touch football. As mentioned, he saves from Shannon. Bowyer has one blocked on the line. There's a Hebbard header that's saved, spilled by Keelan.
Yes.
He's not brushed his hair down quick enough on this occasion. And then there's ambiguity over whether that one's over the line. Jerry Harrison's kind of like, no, it's not over the line, and that looks quite close to me. That one, Dave. Certainly not one that could be, as easily brushed away as. I mean, and that's Anglia's kind of like commentator as well, doing his best, kind of like keep the local area controversy free, shall we say?
Absolutely. I think goal line technology would have an interest in that one. I mean, I don't know what Keelan's doing. He sort of saves it and then scoops it over his shoulder and manages to drop on it somewhere in the vicinity of the goal line. We'll say no more than that. But yes, in the modern game, that might have been 1-0 Southampton.
Absolutely. I mean, they do make it 1-0 not long after. A name that has slipped me by, Andrew Shevsky. Yeah, it came out of left field for me, this one. He has shall we say, an intriguing game either side of the half-time interval there. He put Southampton into the lead, and then he kind of, it's his assist, shall we say, for Norwich's equaliser, Dave. That's quite a swing in fortunes for the almost unknown Andrew Shevsky.
I mean, it is a decent goal that he scores, actually.
It is, fine goal.
Sets him away down the left-hand side. And it's a good shot right across Kevin Keelan. And in at the far post for 1-0, and he must be feeling good there. New club, scored a goal, made an impact. Unfortunately, this does not last for long. I mean, there's a back pass of sorts. I don't know what it's supposed to be, really. It's just dreadful that they're far too short. Justin Fashioner gets there first, and the ball sort of just loops off him into the net for one apiece. And Andrzejewski, all of a sudden, things are now not going quite so well, and he's thinking about going home instead. It's that's the nature of football in a 10-minute nutshell, really. Either side of half time, but and that kind of sparks Norwich back into it, and then Southampton, I think, always at that time were a bit brittle away from home. They're a good side, but they could, you could get at them away from home. I think ultimately that's what this goes on to. This game goes on to be after that reverse.
It is indeed a big weekend on the big match for Invercars, Dave. We have a sighting at Carrow Road, just the one over towards the corner. Towards the corner flag. Couldn't get any close to the corner flag, really. It's wonderfully of its era, not just the sighting of it, but also just how close it is back to the pitch on this occasion, which, at Carrow Road, you've not much choice. If they let you in with an Invercar, you will have to park very, very close to the corner flag. That's definitely happening. Before long, Norwich are ahead. Mick Maguire, again, fine move. Kevin Reeves, Justin Fashanu, Martin Peters, all involved. Norwich complete and it's with the magnificent Simon Surridge ball as well. So this again, visually and aesthetically, there's a lot going on for this game, Dave.
There is, yeah. I mean, it is a good goal, as you say. To Mick Maguire, who scores, he really gets hold of it, and although the goalkeeper gets onto it, he can't stop it flying in. But it's a really nicely worked goal from Norwich, and puts them back in front, having come from behind. And again, back then, I don't think it's quite so important now, because I suppose the nature of football and so many teams playing counter-attacking football and whatnot. But back then, home advantage was such a big thing, particularly if you were one of those teams who were in the bottom half of the division and looking to stay up. You really had to win a lot of home games, and Carrow Road was a big thing for Norwich. It was a big bonus for them. So going on to win this game in the end, courtesy of a Keelan diving save in the final minute from Trevor Hebbard. You had to win your own games if you were one of those smaller clubs at that stage. And Carrow Road was to use the modern vernacular, was a fortress for Norwich, and they really needed to dig out. I know you probably have to win 10, 11 of your own games back in the day, because teams didn't very often, other than the obvious suspects, the Liverpools and the Arsenals or whatever, teams didn't win that many times away from home back then. So it was a big thing. That's the kind of stuff that keeps Norwich afloat for years on end.
It does indeed. I mean, there was always something great about these types of games as well for me. Mid-table sides, those type of sides that could just as easily get embroiled in a relegation battle as be on the periphery for European places, and capable of a cup run here and there, and that great volatility of teams like that. But the fact that you threw in, like you say, Carrow Road, Southampton with the Dell, those great stadiums, atmospheric, valuable stadiums to them, but they could also play football, and that was the big thing, is that they could knock the ball around. You got a Southampton side that can call on an Alan Ball and a Charlie George. You've got a Norwich City side there that can call on a Kevin Reeves, of a Martin Peters, of a Justin Fashanu. These are players that command the right to play in a team that want to move the ball around. We're still, a few years years away from the meat and potato of long ball football for a lot of these sides. They're moving the ball around fantastically well.
Yeah, it's such a misconception of 70s and 80s football that it was, very stale, and it was defensively dominated, and it was long ball stuff, and it was chasing, and it for the most part, it wasn't. Certainly not in the in the top division. You know, there was a lot of good football played, and I suppose, you know, you look at what Liverpool had done through the 70s at that point. That had, you know, in the same way that Guardiola had his impact in the last sort of 10 years. I think Liverpool had theirs. At that period, people wanted to try and keep the ball. You know, I mean, you remember the inquest after the 73 when England went out to Poland. It was, we can never keep the ball. We can't do this. We can't do that. But there was a lot of good football being played in the first division, and we were trying to be a bit more European, I suppose, for want of a better word. And that, you know, we were then seeing people like Muren and Tyson and whoever coming in from Europe and bringing that influence with them. So there's a lot of really good football played. This isn't, you know, hoof it 75 yards and 11 blokes chase it, and then we'll hoof it 75 yards back and we'll all turn around and chase it back the other way. It's far from that. There's a lot of really, really nice, sophisticated football being played at this stage.
Absolutely, there is. 2 valuable points for Norwich in this one. We have 2 more games. All we get is the goals, you know, of these, but they're important ones. At Burnden Park, Bolton, Manchester City travel to Bolton, and 1 goal decides it. And Steve Daley gets his first goal for Manchester City, Dave, since his blockbusting move from Wolves.
The tide is finally turning for Steve Daley, or perhaps not. Well, I mean, you know, we've said our fill on his immense fee already over the season. I did feel sorry for him still there, really, to be put in that position. But not a bad goal, 20 yards, bottom corner.
Yeah, good goal. And that's a second successive win, though, 7 days on from winning the Manchester derby. Romark must be on holiday at this point in time, Dave. Exactly. He's taken his eye off literally taken his eye off the Manchester City board.
Or perhaps he's just lulling Malcolm Ellis into a false sense of security. I mean, he's a cunning fellow, Romark, you know. He
is a cunning fellow, you might be right there. City ground. Nottingham Forest's long unbeaten home run comes to an end, fittingly against Brighton. Brighton haven't got an away win, the bottom of the table. There's been a lot of conjecture in the week that we've already touched on Tony Woodcock's move to Cologne. This is Woodcock's last game for Forest. He plays the first half, he's hooked at half-time. Brighton win. Jerry Ryan scores the only goal. There's a Larry Lloyd error in this. What we don't see on the footage is that there is a late penalty that Nottingham Forest missed. John Robertson a bit too nonchalant. Larry Lloyd wins the penalty, much to his own bemusement, according to the match report. Even Larry Lloyd was a bit confounded by the award of the penalty, but, you know, having been given the gift, Forest do not, you know, take advantage of said gift. Yeah, for almost 3 years since their last defeat on home soil. It's a bobbler on a terrible pitch. It's a forlorn-looking Peter Shilton left to mull over this shocking turn of events. Peter Ward puts in a fine performance. A huge saga in the week with regards to that is that as part of Woodcock's shift to Cologne, Clough was on the brink of signing Peter Ward. The transfer, at least temporarily, falls through. It will eventually come to fruition, not for a good another year nearly, I think it is. But yeah, there's just something quite right about Brighton being the team, given all the whole Mike Bamba circus. You know, given that Clough had walked out on Brighton, Peter Taylor, you know, another former manager who'd left Brighton to go and reunite with Clough at Forest. You know, for that run to come to an end, it was quite right and fitting that it should be Brighton to do that and pull off this shock result.
It was, yeah. I mean, it's funny how it's so often the least expected game where these kind of runs come to a finish. I mean, it is a classic 70s goal, and Larry Lloyd sort of semi-clears it. It hits Jerry Ryan, sticks in the mud, and then that gives Ryan the chance to pounce on it and poke it past Peter Shilton into the bottom corner. It's just, you know, it is one of those great weirdnesses of football that it is a team, the least likely team. I mean, bottom of the table, no away wins, going nowhere except relegated, it seemed, at this point of the season. And here they are beating the European Cup winners at the City Ground, first time in 52 games. It's, you know, that, as Carno always used to say, this is football.
Absolutely, it is. Absolutely. Quick run through the First Division related back page headlines. We've already talked plenty Tony Woodcock in the Keegan one. But as part of that potential transfer merry-go-round, Peter Ward was fully expected to join Nottingham Forest earlier in the week leading up to this game. And as part of that, Brighton were heavily linked with David Fairclough of Liverpool, a transfer that does not come to fruition. Derby County were expected to make a move for Des Ferguson. So the whole Peter Ward moving to Nottingham Forest concept was set to kind of like put a domino effect into play that didn't actually happen, Dave.
Seems to be always the way with transfers. This one hinges on that one, which hinges on that one, which hinges on this one. And it's such a shame we don't have this anymore. I know we get it a bit in the summer, particularly the last week in August, but it just added to the whole thing about football, the atmosphere around football, the excitement about football. Here we are in mid-November, we're talking about these transfers. This is great. This is what you want, isn't it? As a fan, you want this kind of intrigue going on, and are we going to sign him, or is he going to go there, or are our rivals going to do this? I think it's it just deadens it, doesn't it, for 4 months? When you're waiting for the transfer window to open again.
It absolutely does. Andy Gray mentioned in terms of his kind of similarities to a dog at Villa Park. He's set to be omitted from the Scotland squad for the Euro 80 qualifier away to Belgium. Jock Stein has watched Gray play against QPR in the League Cup in midweek, and he agrees with John Barnwell's synopsis that the player isn't fully fit yet. Archie Gemmill is also a doubt. The Birmingham City man damaged knee ligaments against Cambridge United. Jimmy Adamson's been given a vote of confidence, the dreaded vote of confidence, and a promise of £1 million to spend in the transfer market after a 3-hour meeting with the board. In the midweek, Bob Latchford has earned himself an England recall for the qualifier against Bulgaria. Everton in the midweek had beaten Leeds 5-1 at Goodison Park. Other results from the First Division on this weekend: Everton, despite their midweek win against Leeds, have gone down 2-0 at Arsenal. 2 goals from Frank Stapleton in the second half. We've already touched on Aston Villa beating Stoke 2-1, Manchester City's 1-0 win at Bolton. Ipswich pick up 2 points, 1-0 win at Derby. That's been a bit of a 4-pointer there, Dave, with Ipswich in the bottom 3. West Brom lost out 1-0 at Leeds. Liverpool have won 2-1 against Tottenham. A couple of goals for Terry McDermott. Interesting game at Old Trafford. Manchester United 1, Crystal Palace 1. Joe Jordan causes a bit of a rumpus. He scores a 90th minute equaliser for Manchester United, but he is also maimed. We're going for Kenny Burns' corner here. He's maimed Jerry Francis early on, removed him from the game. He's damaged his hip. He's gone in with studs. Francis has ended up needing 4 stitches in his hand because he's managed to place his hand between the studs of Joe Jordan and his own hip in protection of what's coming. He's been sent to hospital with a suspected broken hand. That's not the case, but 4 stitches. So yeah, and also Terry Venables has taken exception that Jordan was unwilling to apologise after the match. Dave, Joe Jordan in peak antagonistic form there.
Surely a case of mistaken identity. That can't possibly be Joe Jordan that's been involved in such a thing as that. I did interview Joe Jordan once. It was over the phone. I was terrified just talking to him over the phone. Frankly, he was. He was genuinely a fearsome sight, Joe Jordan, back then. I wouldn't have wanted to have been a centre half, having to tangle with Big Joe when he got the ump about something. Absolutely.
Middlesbrough 1-0 winners at home to Bristol City. Norwich, as we mentioned, 1-2-1 at home to Southampton. Brighton's shot victory at the City Ground against Nottingham Forest. And finally, Coventry City, 3-0 winners at Wolves. Ian Wallace back with goals, a couple of goals for Ferguson in the second half. The man mentioned with a potential move to Derby. Liverpool top of the table with Manchester United drawing. Liverpool ahead on goal average, 21 points, level points for Manchester United. Still got that game in hand that they've not made up from the opening day of the season at Wolves as yet. On 20 points, third place, Crystal Palace, so all very close. Nottingham Forest down to 4th, but still on 19, only 2 behind the leaders. Then it's Arsenal and Norwich, Middlesbrough all on 18. Just 3 points splitting the top 7 there, Dave. Still all to play for at the top as far as the title chase and European places at the bottom. We've got Bolton, now bottom of the table because of Brighton's win, both on 9 points. Ipswich still in the bottom three despite their win on 12, but level on points now with Derby. A point behind Stoke, 2 behind Leeds, Bristol City, and Everton. Everton only 2 clear of the drop zone. Plenty of intrigue in that league table there, Dave.
Yes, I think that win for Ipswich at Derby is a significant one. I mean, we'll come on to seeing Ipswich in fuller form in a couple of weeks' time. But they just started to turn the corner, I think, at that point. They've had a few injuries and whatnot, been stuck in the bottom three. But that win at Derby, also a struggling side at that time. That's the one that's going to get it moving.
Absolutely, absolutely. Dave, paragraph 2, subsection 1.09 of 1979-80 revisited. We've gone into a little bit of injury time on this, but we've crowbarred 4 games in and plenty of intrigue. So yeah, a great one to have. We're dipping into the second division for paragraph 2, Dave. Always a joy.
Looking forward to it.
Excellent. All that leaves me to say is thank you for listening. Do join us again next time. Subscribe for more rambling content on all sorts of the podcast where it's always the 1980s, apart from the first half of the 1979-80 season. Obviously, we've not even got to the 80s yet on this particular subsection. Do join us again next time. Thank you and goodbye.